And what we got right now is that one thing that we've been tracking is the amount of rainfall that we're going to be expecting. Now, the time frame we're looking at is going to be really pretty much from now until about, well, pretty much until about 6 o'clock in the morning. The impacts that we're looking at still are strong storms, wind gusts that will be easily exceeding over 35 miles an hour, and heavy rainfall. And what you need to do now is that you need to have alternate lighting and batteries. Well, flashlight, batteries, have those handy. If you have anything that's a mobile device, start charging them now. You may have not lost power. When I got home early this morning, well, I had lights flickering, and that was very indication that power may be going out. So you just want to make sure that you're prepared. The biggest impact, again, that we're going to be looking at from Tropical Storm Debby is going to be the heavy rainfall with the already continued potential for considerable flooding. And the overall picture right now is that what do you need to do? What do you need to know and prepare? Well, there's no doubt that any flooded areas, and when I mean flooded areas, whether you're walking or driving through it, if you can't see the ground, if you're driving in, you can't see the stripes on the roadway, don't even bother. Just turn around, don't drown. Two main things about that. One, you don't know how much water there is that's cascading over that walkway or roadway. And two, if the water's deep enough, we don't even know if the road is still there. If you recall, in many other floods we've had over the last 9 years, the road may be washed out, but there's so much water coming across that we don't even know that the road is washed out. If for any reason whatsoever your location is told that you need to evacuate immediately, and at least for this purposes, for Tropical Storm Debby, here in the Midlands, the likelihood would be for the rainfall or the flooding rainfall. Have a plan in place. Know what you're going to do. If you're going to evacuate, well, what kind of plan do I need? First, food and water, non-perishable items, stuff that won't go bad for you, your family, and your pets. And one thing about the pets, if you do not want to leave because you don't want to leave the dog at home and you not sure if a shelter is going to take it, take your pet with you, okay? I won't say which meteorologist, but we have somebody who's got a bunny. Take the bunny with you. There are shelters in place throughout the Midlands that will accept animals in their shelter. You just have to make sure you get in contact with your emergency management county officials and find out where these shelters are. But don't stay home because you can't bring your pet. Bring your pet with you. Other things you need to bring: important documentation, your driver's license, your social security number, your marriage license, the insurance to your car, your home, and your boat. Have all those papers with you. Registration papers for the kids. All of that take with you. When you pack, when you're planning to pack, in case you evacuate, just pack enough that you can carry. Don't bring everything in the kitchen sink. Just bring enough that you would be able to carry with you. Again, the evacuation may be temporary for a few hours or maybe a day or two, so you don't want that much stuff that you want to take with you and then have to bring it back. The most important message is stay away from down power lines. That's almost obvious. You don't want to get electrocuted. You do not know if the power is still surging through that power line. So if a power pole is leaning or down, the power poles are down, stop. Don't even bother trying to cross over. Don't even bother trying to go around it, especially if it's in flooded waters. If that line is hot, if that line is active, that water is a perfect conduit for that water to be electrified as well, and that electrification could expand far further away than you actually think. Water, power lines, stop, same thing. Turn around, don't even bother going through that. The thing that we're looking at specifically when we're talking about our overnight all the way through tomorrow, again, that timing is going to be all the way up to 6 o'clock in the morning with that more heavy rainfall and the storms. And again, you want to make sure that you charge all of your mobile devices. The update that we got from the National Hurricane Center earlier today, that was at 2 o'clock, winds sustained at 60, gusting to 70. Note the forward motion, northeast at 3 miles an hour. Now that was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The key thing is that it's even slower than the update we had at 11 o'clock and 5 o'clock this morning. Bottom line is that it's moving northeast at 3 miles an hour. It's still moving northeast, but if you look at all of its movement for the last 48 hours, still on land, made its way offshore just around Hilton Head, took a nosedive to the southeast, still crawling, moved pretty much all the way east through last night, and then early this morning, it started to make a little bit of a turn to the northeast, and it's been doing that all the way up until this 2 o'clock update. It is moving very slow. By the early afternoon, notice a lot of showers and thunderstorms that were pretty much covering the eastern half of South Carolina. Not that much activity offshore, but all this activity really blossomed once all of this came over into land, and the interaction with the land actually exacerbated all this precipitation into convection with the showers and thunderstorms with really big downfalls associated with it. We still have tropical storm warnings for the entire South Carolina shoreline, but it includes all the way inland for the Low Country and the Grand Strand. That'll continue until Tropical Storm Debby is out of the way. Here's the one noticeable thing. Even though the trajectory does have Tropical Storm Debby turning more to the northwest at some point in the evening, the trajectory still has it anywhere from Georgetown to Charleston County as far as a landfall. Maybe Horry County, but there is more confidence now that the cone of uncertainty is really narrowed that it's going to be somewhere Georgetown to Charleston. The landfall potentially could be 65 mile an hour sustained winds as a tropical storm Wednesday night. Well, this is tonight. It may be more around midnight, give or take 1 or 2 hours. The key thing is that there is some models that are indicating very quick, rapid intensification over the course of the evening and even all the way up to now, and then as we go into tomorrow morning. This landfall potentially could be a Category 1 hurricane. Even if that's the case, we're only talking about maybe 75 mile an hour winds. I say only because 65 mile an hour winds, tropical storm, 75 mile an hour Category 1 hurricane. The winds, it's really a difference of 10 miles an hour. Bottom line is that there will be wind impacts, no doubt, to the coastline. As of earlier today, the National Hurricane Center dropped all the storm surge watches and warnings. That included Horry, Georgetown, and Charleston County. There will be a storm surge going into tomorrow morning. The storm surge very likely will be less than 3 feet. Yes, in many areas in Horry and Georgetown County, the water will very likely go through the first barriers of the dunes to the second barriers of the dunes and possibly all the way up to the boardwalks. Will it exceed over the boardwalks? Will it cascade over the boardwalks? Very likely not. So we don't expect inundation of storm surge to go as far as anywhere along our South Carolina coastline. We don't expect the water to get all the way to and anywhere past Ocean Boulevard or Highway 17. So that's not an issue. The issue is, that we're about to show, is that because of the trajectory from midnight tonight, overnight tonight, through tomorrow morning, which it'll be positioned somewhere in the PD, maybe in Florence County, it's still going to be moving very slow. The anticipation is that even after landfall, it still may be moving some of the ballpark about 5 miles an hour. But by the time we get to tomorrow, by Thursday, let's say late morning to midday, the forward motion is expected to accelerate rapidly, maybe up to 15 miles an hour. So notice Thursday morning, the Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening is way out in the Piedmont. So we don't expect the center of whatever Debby is at that point to be anywhere in the PD or South Carolina for that matter after we get into into Thursday afternoon. But again, the rainfall is going to be the big thing. That's why there still is a flash flood watch all the way through Friday morning at 8 a.m. And it covers just about all of South Carolina with the exception of the Northwest Midlands and the upstate. How much rainfall are we looking at? Well, the computer model is indicating that overnight tonight, we're going to have the heavy rainfall already moving through. It will continue to push to the west. So this heavy rainfall is going to continue from overnight tonight right through tomorrow morning. And we are talking about another round of very heavy rainfall, torrential rainfall that easily could be coming down at upwards of 2, maybe 2.5 inches per hour. As we go into the late morning, there's still heavy rainfall, but at this point now, you can see by midday that Debby is somewhere inland, and the projections of the National Hurricane Center pretty much have it on track that it's going to be somewhere in the far eastern PD, maybe even the far eastern Midlands. But that's by midday. The rainfall will continue going into Thursday afternoon, Thursday night, but at this point, projections have it that it's already going to be moving close to, if not into the Piedmont, out of the upstate. So Thursday, as we get into the evening, we'll still have showers, maybe a few storms, but it will start letting up. Although this is showing that we still have quite a bit of activity, but not to the greater, more to the lesser. As we get into Thursday overnight, the anticipation is by the time we get to very late Thursday night and into early Friday morning, whatever precipitation is coming down is going to be in far less places in the Midlands, a little bit more widespread in the PD, the Grand Strand, and the Low Country. Overnight tonight, the highest risk for the heaviest amount of flooding rainfall will be the PD, the Grand Strand, and then a moderate, so there's a very good chance, but almost an unlikely chance, of heavy rainfall in the PD extending through the Eastern Midlands down to the Low Country, and then a slight risk for most of the rest of the Midlands, where we could see possibly more heavy rainfall. That's overnight, and then by tomorrow, so by Thursday, the concentration of the heaviest rainfall is going to be still in the Grand Strand and the Eastern PD, but then a little bit further to the west. That does include a good portion of the Northeast Midlands, a moderate risk for heavy rainfall, and then a slight risk for the rest of the Midlands and the Low Country for the possibility, it's a slight, but there's that possibility that we could see more heavy rainfall. Now, when we talk about heavy rainfall, what are we talking about? Well, the high risk could be easily anywhere from 3 to 4 inches on the minimum up. The moderate, we could be looking at 3 to 4 inches, and then the slight could be anywhere from 1.5 inches to up to 2 inches, and then a marginal would be approaching 1 inch, and that'll be total for that particular day's time frame. By the time we get to Friday, it's a slight risk for pretty much the northern quarter of South Carolina, but it does include portions of the northern Midlands, while the rest of South Carolina will be marginal. So we do anticipate that this forecast for Friday would very likely be at the longest for the first half of Friday, but I anticipate very likely it's going to be from the overnight hours, early Friday morning to maybe at the longest Friday mid-morning. Saturday, we're all done. How much rainfall are we talking about for the state? Overnight, going into after midnight tonight, well, we're talking about most of the heavy rainfall is going to be in the far eastern portions of the Midlands into the PD. Conservatively on the high end, we're looking at anywhere from 4 to 5 inches of rainfall. That's just for overnight into the morning. By tomorrow afternoon, we're talking now upwards of maybe 6 to 8 inches of rainfall, and that covers pretty much from the Eastern Midlands all the way out to the Grand Strand. Along the center portion and then to the Eastern Midlands to the Low Country, maybe a total of 1 inch to 1.5 inches more on the low end, possibly 2 inches more. And then by the time we get to Friday morning, and by the time the rainfall should be done and tapering off, the total amounts from midnight going into Friday morning could total less than 1 inch to the western portions of the Midlands, to the central and eastern portion of the Midlands, up to possibly 1.5 to 2.5 inches of rainfall. But the far eastern Midlands and all the way up to the Grand Strand and the far eastern PD could top as high as 6 to 8 inches of rainfall by the time all of this is finally done. What are we talking about as far as winds? That's the other criteria that we're going to have to watch. At this point right now, the tropical wind storm chances are going to be the most prevalent along the coastline, which we still anticipated, and then extending into maybe areas of far eastern Midlands and eastern PD, basically along and east of I-95. That's going to be the highest anticipation. Here in the Midlands, specifically, again, for overnight tonight, greatest risk is going to be the eastern third of the Midlands. The central Midlands, there's still a chance for heavy rainfall, and then a marginal chance to the western Midlands. Then as we get into Thursday, the focus will be in the northeast side of the Midlands, while most of the Midlands for Thursday, we're looking at the slight risk, and then by Friday, only the northern Midlands, and it is a slight category at most, and that'll probably be for the first half of the day. How much are we expecting here in the Midlands? Well, as we get to midnight, again, conservatively, some areas in the eastern Midlands could top 2 to nearly 5 inches of rainfall. By the time we get to Thursday, by the time we get to the morning, well, we're looking at pushing maybe 5 to upwards of 7 inches of rainfall, again, in the eastern third. By tomorrow night, the central portion of the Midlands could top over 2 inches of rainfall, while the eastern Midlands are still maybe at 7 inches. But notice, the numbers really haven't changed that much. The heaviest rainfall then starts moving to the west. So we're still anticipating that by Thursday, by tomorrow night, overall, western third of the Midlands, maybe up to an inch. The central third of the Midlands, potentially as high as 3 inches. And the far eastern Midlands, on the high end, could top 6 to 7 inches of rainfall. By the time we get to Friday, when everything's starting to taper off, that amount of rainfall is only going to be a little bit more than we already had by Thursday midnight, and we're not expecting that much more rain thereafter. As far as the tropical storm wind chances, it's not a great chance, but still is a chance that along and east of I-95, we could have tropical storm wind gusts that would exceed 40 miles an hour or more. It will be windy for the rest of the Midlands. Now we're looking at, on the top end, without the tropical storm wind gusts, we could still have wind gusts of 30 to 35 miles an hour, and we definitely experienced that as we went into early this afternoon in many areas of the eastern Midlands, and of course that will expand as we get into tomorrow. But again, the key thing is that the position of where Debbie's going to be, the landfall is likely going to be sometime midnight going into Thursday morning, somewhere around the areas of Georgetown or Charleston County, and then it makes its way towards the eastern PD, but sometime after daybreak. But the good thing is that even though that may be positioned in the morning, by the afternoon it's already in the Piedmont of North Carolina, and by tomorrow night it's into central North Carolina, and that's it, we are done. Now, we are constantly monitoring and update everything on Tropical Storm Debby as we continue all the way through until we finally get done with this on Friday. I'm News 19 Chief Meteorologist Efren Afante, and we'll talk to you soon.